If you've ever tried soloing over a blues like Stormy Monday without a backing band, I think you'll agree that it sounds pretty empty and the solo itself doesn't seem to have any sense of direction. In this lesson, we'll be presenting ways of outlining the changes so that even if you're playing solo jazz guitar, the listener will be able to hear the chord changes. So this is the key to playing good solo jazz guitar. Let's get started. In this session, we'll be focusing on 3 different aspects of music. We'll be discussing how the Allman brothers took a basic 12-bar blues harmonic framework and transformed it into a sophisticated blues. We'll be looking at a very important musical technique that's used in improvisation and composition, and I'm referring here to the guide tone line. Guide tone lines are particularly important to the solo jazz guitarist, who has to outline the harmonies of the tune that he's playing without the aid of a band. And of course we'll be exploring ways to apply the Barry Harris system to the blues to create some exquisite jazz flavours. On the screen you'll see a basic set of chords for a 12-bar blues in G, and we'll be using this set of chords to start developing guide tone lines. And as we go through, we'll add more sophisticated chords until the whole 12-bar blues is transformed into what we know as the Allman Brothers version of Stormy Monday. Okay, let's have a look at what a guide tone is. A guide tone is a series of notes which, if properly constructed, indicates and most often predicts the movement and resolution of a chord progression. A strong guide tone line can be used as a skeleton upon which you build your solo. Once you have a strong guide tone line, your job is to play around and decorate that line. When you're able to resolve your improvised notes properly, your playing will dramatically improve, and guide tones will help you do it. So let's have a look at what some of the criteria is for creating a good guide tone line. Number 1, a good guide tone line moves at the rate of 1 note per chord. So that means if you have 1 chord per bar, you can just simply play 1 note and hold that note. If there's 2 chords in the bar, the guide tone line would move at the rate of every 2 beats. The second criteria is that a good guide tone line moves by half or whole steps, preferably half steps. Thirdly, an effective guide tone line moves in a manner that's easy to remember. For example, it could move upward or downward for an entire phrase. Number 4, a good guide tone line usually emphasises strong notes of the chord, like the 3rd and 7th. So now here's some guide tone line tips. Try to have your guide tone line move in semitones. 2, use common tones between chords if possible. 3, choose a direction, either a guide tone line moving up or moving down. Okay, let's go over to our 12-bar blues and see how we would actually create a guide tone line. The first thing to do is to write down all the notes that are in each chord. So with the G7th, we have the notes G, B, D, F. I'm going to start a guide tone line beginning on the 3rd. The 3rd of G7th is B. Then I go to the 2nd bar and I write down the notes in a C7th chord. C, E, G, B flat. And the idea here is to see if we can connect these 2 chords using a guide tone line that moves in semitones. If we have a look at all our options there, we can see that if we choose B flat for the 2nd bar, that will meet our criteria because there's a semitone between the note B, that's the note we chose for bar 1, and B flat, the note in bar 2. Now if we move on to bar 3, we're back to G7th, so obviously if we create a guide tone line that moves from B flat in bar 2 back to B in bar 3. Moving on to bar 5, we're back to C7, so our guide tone line could move to B flat again. In bar 6, once again we have C7. In bar 7, we're back to G7. And you guessed it, we're back to the note B. And in bar 8, we still have G7th. Moving on to bar 9, and here we have D7. So now what we have to do is find out the notes in a D7th chord, which would be D, F sharp, A, C. So now we could move our guide tone line from the note B over to the note C in the D7th bar, because once again, out of all our possible options with the notes in a D7 chord, the C is a semitone away from B. Moving on to bar 10, and we have C7. And now here's the first instance where there isn't any note in the D7th chord that can be connected to a C7th chord with a semitone. So in this instance, we look for the next nearest alphabetical note. I would go with C in the D7th bar, moving to B flat in the C7th bar. In bar 11, I'd go for the note B again. And so there's a guide tone line that we've created, moving through this 12-bar blues progression, beginning on the third of the first chord. And now before we go any further, let's play a guide tone line through the Allman Brothers chord progression for Stormy Monday. I'll highlight the notes as I'm going through, and you'll see wherever possible we're going with a semitone movement between one chord and the next. We're going to use our guide tone line to help create a structure for our soloing. We're going to use these guide tone line notes as target notes. And the idea is to identify and outline the chord changes. So even if there isn't a band playing in the background, the listener will still be able to hear the chord changes for the particular tune we're playing. So we're going to play a little game. The idea is to hit the target note on the first beat of the bar or wherever the chord change occurs. And then we can play any notes that we hear, any melodic ideas we hear. We can use notes out of the blues scale, the Mixolydian mode, or whatever you like. But the idea is we want to be back in time to play the next target note. So I'm going to play the first 4 bars of Stormy Monday, and you'll see on the screen there'll appear the particular target note that I'm aiming for. Okay, time to listen to a solo played over the entire 12-bar chord progression of Stormy Monday, and we'll have a listen to 2 versions. Firstly, with a band playing in the background, and then the same solo without the band. Have a listen to the second solo, and you'll notice that you can still hear the chord changes, and that's because of the guide tone line that we've created. what about the Barry Harris chord changes, I hear you ask? One of the questions I get asked a lot is, what do we do when we have these new Barry Harris overlay chords? Well, for the moment, I'd stick with the idea of playing over the original Allman Brothers chords as far as the guide tone lines are concerned. In fact, I was playing some Barry Harris chord substitutes in the background of the first version of the solo. And as you can hear, the guide tone line still works over the Barry Harris chords. Just so you can have a listen to what I was doing, here is the same 12-bar blues, this time without the lead solo, so we'll just be listening to the background, which will feature the Barry Harris harmonies. What I decided to do was to play these chords up quite high on the guitar to keep out of the way of the bass player and the soloist. Let's have a listen to the full 12-bar blues with a version of the Barry Harris harmonies played higher up on the neck of the guitar. If you enjoyed this lesson, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more jazz guitar tips, study programs and workouts coming your way. Whether you're into solo playing, chord melody or Barry Harris magic, there's something new every week. I'll see you in the next one.